doing? I'm Supreme Mathematics. I want to talk about the upcoming mayor's race, 2013, March 19th. We have at least 7 people running in the village of Hempstead right now. And the question is why? Why 7 people running to be mayor of the village of Hempstead? And we have to think of it in a way, it has nothing to do with social justice, has nothing to do with political justice, has nothing to do with except for economic money. $2 billion. $2 billion is coming into the village of Hempstead to redevelop the downtown project and just the north corridor. We talked about this before, about the development of downtown Hempstead and the community benefit agreement. A community benefit agreement has been signed in the village of Hempstead and it's active. Here's the deal. There is no housing, there's only 10% housing is being put into it. That 10% housing is the same thing that HUD provides any developer that comes in any town. So there's no set aside for communities to bring in more housing for the population of the village of Hempstead. Jobs. The job creations that's being developed right now in this project is going to be about 25% of the overall, which gives us about 300 houses, maybe 300 houses will come out of the project of the 10%. The 25% jobs, I think they're saying 10,000 jobs, but we'll see when this project gets. But let's first talk about the mayor's race. You have Big Jim Gardner, who's running for mayor. He was the mayor prior. He's running again, and his slate is about bringing Hempstead back to the way it was where he was mayor. Then you have Lance Clark, who's a Republican like Big Jim, who's also running with no team at all, just him. He's out there, and he's trying to bring Hempstead back to its reality. Then you have Perry Pettis, who's a trustee now, who's running for mayor. And you have Wayne Hall, who's the active mayor. And 2 of the mayor's trustees are running against him. And one of his trustees is Henry Connors, who's running for mayor. And then you have Teresa Dyer, who's running. Now, my take on all of it is that it's going to be a funny race because reality sets in foot saying, what can you bring to the village that hasn't been brought to the village already? Will there be more economic development coming to the village of Hempstead? Because I don't believe the North Corridor is going to actually fix the financial problems of the village of Hempstead when you have so much corruption that's in the village of Hempstead. And some of this corruption we have in the village of Hempstead that there's no revenue that's actually being generated inside the village of Hempstead. The police department writes their own grants, their own money, doesn't come to the general fund. The fire department writes their own money, it doesn't come to the general fund. The library board writes its own money, doesn't come to the general fund. So what comes to the general fund? There's no general fund. The only thing in the general fund is the taxpayers that are paying the taxes in the village of Hempstead. There is no industrial park. The industrial park that sits between Peninsula and Front Street doesn't bring enough revenue to do anything to the village of Hempstead. So the only thing that Hempstead can do is give us fines and fees. Fees and fines is the only thing that you can get. So don't park in the village of Hempstead because they're taking away the parking lots to develop. And what it was said is that 25 parking lots that are in the village of Hempstead will all have housing on it, so there'll be nowhere to park. Even though they're talking about it's a transit center, but there'll be no parking for transit. Even the transit parking is going to be taken away. So you won't be able to park in the village of Hempstead anyway, and if you do, you're probably going to get fined at least a $250 fine somewhere on the line. So what are we talking about? We're talking about corruption. Will the corruption in the village of Hempstead be cleaned up? Because the mayor himself has had allegations against him that will probably upset him a little bit. But will he become mayor again? My prediction is that Wayne Hall will probably end up still being mayor. Even though there are people who bring out signs like this against the mayor, saying, look out for these guys. They're talking about Henry Connors, Mayor Wayne Hall, and Tony Rosario. The reason why they put this out because the community benefit agreement that they agreed on putting forward had nothing to do with the community at large, had nothing to do with the community's needs or assessment needs that the community is looking for. There's no true housing, there's no guaranteed jobs, there's not even an oversight board, oversight committee. In fact, the person that they're letting the oversight committee be will be Jack Profit, who in the close on last Tuesday's meeting received an agreement of $25 million just being the finder of the developer coming to the village of Hempstead. That's a lot of chunk change for one individual to bring to the village of Hempstead. And get this, the village of Hempstead is paying that fee. That's nothing that the village should be doing. I believe personally that the developers, Renaissance Downtown, and and urban America should be the ones that's paying jack profit. They're 4%. It's 4% on $2 billion, which turns around to be $25 million. I call him Jed Clampett because now he struck gold. Regardless of how we look at it, he's now going to be another millionaire off the backs of village taxpayers in Long Island. So what we're really saying is that, is this race going to benefit the community at large, or is it going to benefit the pockets of the developers? More than likely, it's going to benefit the pockets of the developers because it didn't talk about new roads, new sewers, and even the sewers. There was $5 million that was put together, and that $5 million is not to do development of the infrastructure of the sewers. It's a study. That $5 million went to one organization to do a study and to find out how much it really would cost to do an infrastructure in the Village of Hempstead. And we're talking sewers. What we really need is somebody with an insight, a businessman who understands the business of the Village of Hempstead. It's a $12 trillion industry within itself, and someone needs to come to manage it to make sure that we're getting the best of the Village of Hempstead. Yes, it's a transit center. Yes, it has the Long Island Railroad. Yes, it has the buses that come in. But all that makes up a good product of a good development of a good community. And we need a mayor that's going to be able to take advantage of that and make that happen for its residents. It's not that the residents don't want to live here in Hempstead, but we don't need new residents coming into the Hempstead if you can't take care of the old residents. 40% of the Village of Hempstead right now, commercial property, is in foreclosure. We have vacant buildings all up and down Hempstead. You go down Fulton, there's vacant buildings. Down Franklin, there's vacant buildings. Down Washington, there's vacant buildings. So to say that you're going to bring a development project on the northern corridor of the Village of Hempstead, it's going to bring this economic engine in, I doubt that, because the economic engine that's already in the Village of Hempstead is not being fortified for it to build its own self. There's plenty of business people are here already, but they're not getting the opportunity to build up their economics to make sure Hempstead becomes a better place. So in the overall on March 19th, we need to look at who's becoming mayor, keep them to the breast of saying, this is what we need to see, and the things that we need to see is real, true development. Like, I'm personally looking for something out of the Village of Hempstead, and that's a performing arts theater. Everybody on Long Island has a performing arts theater except for Hempstead. And we go all over, and most of the most famous artists come from out of our region. But yet still, we don't have that performing arts theater, which is something that's really needed in the Village of Hempstead. So I say to you, let's look at this race very carefully, watch who's coming out for the vote, and watch when they knock on your door and ask those hard, serious questions. Are you going to take care of my property? What's going on with my tax base? Am I going to be able to still live here 10 years from now? Once the build out is built out, will you still be able to live in the Village of Hempstead? That's a serious question. Better yet, will your young people be able to live here in the Village of Hempstead? Because we know brain drain has happened consistently on Long Island, and mainly in Hempstead. What we should be thinking about is, will we be able to vote in our own people, our own residents, people who look like you and I, or will there be other people coming into the Village of Hempstead taking advantage of this rich community that already exists? The question is, probably not. If we don't start working together to developing strategies and actions to make sure we safeguard ourselves here in the Village of Hempstead, there won't be any blacks or minorities living in the Village of Hempstead come 10 years from now. The real reality is that we need to look at what's going on now today. And what's really happening right now is that we're being woodwinked by individuals like this. Watch out for these guys, because these are the guys that put us in the situation that we're in right now. I'll talk to you later on about this.